Welcome to the ReaderHouse Author Roundtable, where authors from all walks of life come together to discuss the trials, tribulations, and triumphs of publishing their books. I'm your host, Corey Graham. Join us here every Friday night at 8 p.m. or listen anytime via podcast at Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Stitcher, TuneIn, and PodServe, to name just a few. The Author Roundtable is sponsored by ReaderHouse Online Bookstore, where the independent new authors come first. The new book, written by Janna Perez, is a tale of family, growth, and unconditional love. It's titled For Love of the Shell. The author, Janna, is right here with me now at the ReaderHouse Author Roundtable. We get to talk all about it. Janna, welcome. Thanks for being here with me tonight.
Thank you, Corey. It's so nice to be here. Appreciate it.
I can't wait to find out about For Love of the Shell, Janna. Can you tell me all about it?
I sure can. It's really about the growing pains as a parent of allowing our child to grow up and leave the nest. Mimi and Pops are a mama and a daddy bluebird, and they're starting a family. And it starts off with there's little complications, with the hatching of both eggs. There's 2 eggs. And then it's the story progresses into, the parents raising 2 completely different birds. And, the attachment issues and how one's a more independent bird and the other bird is doesn't want to leave the safety, of the nest, of the parents, that kind of thing. So it's for kids that are just, they long to grow up, and then also for parents who don't want to let go. So a little bit of a, for everybody type book.
So how did this all come about, Janna? How did that idea come to you?
Well, I've had it since I had my daughter back in 2000. I've always wanted to write an actual comedy book, about, the tales of us parents, trying to kick our kids out of the nest, pulling them back in. I was going to make it funny and maybe not child appropriate. But then the more I started to write it and think about it, it was like it started becoming more serious because it's, it's what all of us as parents deal with and trying to, we want our kids to grow up and be independent, but at the same time, we're like, no, we still want them to stay with us. And, if you have children, I'm sure you can relate. So.
Absolutely. So once you got started on this, how long of a process was this? The writing and publishing part, everything?
The writing didn't take me but about 2 months or less. Once I started just the thoughts coming out on the paper, it was really quick. It actually had just been thinking about it, since she was born, once she got to a certain age and how I was going to prepare her for the real world and whether I was going to make it a comedy or I was going to make it more serious, which I turned to being more serious.
Is this your first published work or have you been published prior?
No, this is my first published work. Yes, sir. It took all the time. I didn't answer the other part of your question. I guess from the start to the finish, it took about a year and about 3 months. So for publishing and everything.
So once you started working with Christian Faith, your publisher, Janna, what would you say was the most challenging part of that publishing end of things?
The most challenging was picking out what artwork I wanted to present, what I was looking for, because they had so many different types of art to choose from. And I wanted, more of especially for the birds, I wanted them to look vibrant and, have a lot of color and have good facial expression. So I think the artwork was my biggest challenge. But the artists there, they did a fantastic job of relating my real life pictures of birds and what I was looking for into the artwork itself for the book.
And it must have been a special moment for you then, whenever you're finally holding that first copy. It was a real thing. What was that moment like for you, Janna?
Oh my gosh, it was like pure joy. It was like, I can't thank Christian Faith, enough for actually being able to see what I was in my head, what I wanted, and they put it onto paper and made it into a beautiful hardback book. So it's nice to display. I display at work and I display at home. So yeah, pure joy.
What would you say is the most rewarding aspect of it all for you?
Sometimes when I can look on the book websites like Barnes & Noble or Amazon or, any of the half price books, I can see my book for sale. So it's just exciting to do that. And then I'm hoping, as my book gets more popular, the stores will start carrying it. So then I'll go in there, and go, hey, there's my book, point it out to friends, family, acquaintances. So to me, that's the exciting thing.
Well, what a charming book. Again, it's titled For Love of the Shell. It's written by Janna Perez. Published by Christian Faith Publishing and available pretty much everywhere like Amazon and Barnes & Noble and iTunes and also traditional brick-and-mortar stores. Janna, it's been really wonderful talking with you tonight. Thanks so much for being here again.
Thank you so much, Corey. I have enjoyed it, so I appreciate it, sir.
Author Heath DeLany has just released the second book in the Why So Scared series. It's titled No Light, No Way, Afraid of the Dark. And Heath is sitting right here with me now at the ReaderHouse Author Roundtable. We're going to be talking all about it. Heath, welcome to the show. Thanks for joining me tonight.
Thank you for having me. I appreciate you.
Heath, can you tell me all about No Light, No Way, and maybe give us a feel for the series in general, starting with that first one?
The series is, as you said, Why So Scared series. It's about helping kids and adults understand that you don't have to look exactly alike or be the same person to be friends. And that's what the first book, That's Too High to Fly, is Jackson and Percy. Percy's a possum. Jackson is a blue jay, and he's afraid of heights. So, of course, he's a little gruff and doesn't want to be friends with somebody that doesn't look like him. And later on, Percy helps him over, and they move on. That's the first one. And then those two move on to the next one and meet Gerald, the one-eyed raccoon, who's afraid of the dark. So that's the second book.
Heath, what sorts of readers are these books best for?
For children, in between 8 to 12, and at range 5, 7, it's a good message for adults, too. There's a lot of adults that have bought the book that say, it's kind of a good message just to have, because the second one kind of addresses Gerald's handicap of a broken tail and one eye. I mean, people just don't want he got so to where people didn't want to be around him, but it wasn't that way. You look beyond that when you find people who can be friends that are like family that, aren't blood. So that's more what it's about, that and helping them understand how to get over their fears.
Well, Heath, how did this all come about? What inspired you to write this?
Oh, that's funny. I was 14 years with the sheriff's office. I was cruising the back road one day, and there was a buzzard. He wouldn't move out of the road. I was coming right at him. He just kind of hopped off to the side. He just wouldn't fly. He wouldn't fly away. I said, what, is he afraid of heights or afraid to fly? Is what it was. I thought to myself, a bird that's afraid to fly. Oh, well, that's pretty good. And then the story was born. So it just moved on from there. I thought, that's weird. A bird afraid to fly. A raccoon, usually a nocturnal animal, afraid to go out at night. The third book, of course, is going to be the fish that's afraid to go deep in the water.
So prior to that first one, Heath, have you written before, or is this all kind of new stuff for you?
No, I'd never published or tried to publish anything. I had written stories in Kid Journal, but never really thought about it as a published thing.
So how long did this take you to write from beginning to end and then put through that publishing process?
It took me right at a year to get the first one out. About the same for the second one. Getting it written, getting everything proofread and through the process. And me, I'm no artist, so I had to have somebody else draw the pictures and stuff, which the publishing house had that. So,
Was that a smooth process, getting those lined up exactly the way you wanted?
It was. They made it, Christian Faith Publishing made it very easy for me to, they took my, they asked me how I wanted it to look and said, hey, is this what you was thinking? And exactly, yes, thank you.
I could only imagine what you were thinking, what you were feeling whenever that first copy came in. You're holding it in your hands for the first time, Heath. What was that like for you?
Oh, it was amazing. There's nothing like feeling something. I mean, seeing something come to fruition that you think about, you just goes from an idea to an actual tangible item. So it's amazing. It's an amazing feeling, It's an accomplishment. And, to be able to help other people, you always help. So, like I said, law enforcement, many, many, many years, you always want to help. And if you can't be there in their worst, we're usually there in their worst 15 minutes of their life. But, if you can be there in the best and help them overcome things without, the law side, it's great. It's a great feeling.
Well, a lot of aspiring authors are listening to us right now, Heath. Do you have maybe something in the way of advice that you could throw out there for them?
Don't stop. Don't give up. Most people are afraid to fail, which there's no such thing as failure. Failure is just a lesson. Everything that I've failed in my life has helped me build character and move forward with it.
Well, this book definitely has a great message. Again, it's titled No Light, No Way, Afraid of the Dark. This is book 2 in the Why So Scared series, and it's written by Heath DeLany. It's published by Christian Faith Publishing, and you can get it pretty much everywhere, like Amazon and Barnes & Noble and iTunes, and also right down the street at your local bookshop. Well, Heath, it's been great talking with you tonight. Thanks again for being here.
No, thank you very much. I appreciate all y'all do. Thank you.
I'm looking at a book that's a heartwarming and faith-filled children's story written by Karylina England. It's titled Over the Fence, and it's part of the Adventures of Ruby Lou and Pearly May series. Karylina is here with me now at the show, and we're going to talk all about the book. Karylina, welcome. Thank you for being here tonight.
Thank you for having me.
Karylina, I'm curious about Over the Fence and what readers are going to be in for here. Can you tell me about it?
This is a story about two little piglets who were born on a farm, and they grow bigger, and it's time for them to leave their comfortable space and to go to a farm of their very own. But when it comes time to go, they get sad and afraid, and they don't know if they'll see their mama again, and they get worried and don't want to go. And this is a story about how they overcome their fear and their sadness, and they get brave, and they go to their new farm and have all sorts of adventures waiting for them.
How did this all come about, Karylina? Where'd you get the idea for this from?
Well, it was kind of a family emergency. My oldest daughter ended up getting sick, and she couldn't take care of her children. And so we packed up our house and moved to a different state to where she was to help her. And when we got here, within a couple of weeks, we found out she had a very large brain tumor and had to go have 2 brain surgeries to remove the tumor. So my grandchildren, who were 3 and 4, moved in with us, and they had to go to a different state to have the surgeries. And she was in the hospital for 3 weeks, and then there was a recovery afterwards. So altogether, my grandchildren lived with me for a couple months. During the time she was in the hospital, things were very uncertain. We didn't really know what we were dealing with, and the nights were hard. They missed their parents, and so I wrote stories to help the nights not be quite so hard.
Have you ever done anything like this before, Karylina, or is this all sort of new for you?
I've never written a book. When our kids were little, we would always write little notes to them and little fun rhyming things, and we played with our kids a lot, so we had fun with things, but never to this extent.
So being it was your first one and there was a lot to learn, was this a long journey, the writing and publishing process, everything?
No, I never set out to write a book. I set out to entertain my grandchildren. I would write stories to entertain them, and they wanted another one. And so the first book, I wrote it in probably 3 days, and then they wanted another one. So I wrote another book, and then they wanted another one. And so within the 3 weeks of the surgery when they were here, total, I had written the 7 books. So they came pretty quick, and they were fun to write, and they were very entertaining, but it's something that I never would have even considered getting published. I had a friend come visit me, and I had shared with her what I did with the girls, and she's the one who said that I needed to have them published. And I'm like, no, that's not what I'm not going to do that. And she convinced me after several weeks that I should do it. So I thought, well, I don't know the first thing about publishing a book. So I Googled Christian publishers and found one, and I thought, well, I'll just call and find out what the information is, what the process is about it. So I called, and for some reason they asked if they could hear my book, and then they transferred me to about 7 different people, and each time they wanted to hear more of the stories, and by the end of the conversation, they had said they would like to offer me a contract. I wasn't ready, and I said I would think about it. My mother, who lived with us also, she was pretty ill, and at that time, she ended up in the ICU room, and they happened to call me when I was in the ICU room with her and asked me if I was ready to sign the book. She had had a stroke and was in the process of passing away. I signed the book right there in the room with her, and she passed away that afternoon. It was kind of something that I did for my mom.
Again, it's titled Over the Fence. It's part of the Adventures of Ruby Lou and Pearlie May series. It's written by Karylina England, published by Christian Faith Publishing, and available basically everywhere, like Amazon and Barnes & Noble and iTunes, and also traditional brick-and-mortar stores. Karylina, it's been really wonderful talking with you tonight. Thanks again for being here.
Thank you. I appreciate it a lot.
Author Robert Kiama Ndirangu has written a helpful guide to living a Christ-centered life. The book is titled, Are You a Kingdom-Minded Believer? See the 7 Great Mandates That Define You. And Robert is right here with me now at the ReaderHouse Author Roundtable. We're going to talk all about the book. Robert, welcome. Thank you so much for joining me tonight.
Thank you so much. My pleasure.
Robert, can you tell me all about Are You a Kingdom-Minded Believer and what readers are going to be finding here?
Yes, I am a kingdom-minded believer because I'm a follower of Jesus Christ. I believe in the principles of the Word of God, and I know that there's a difference between being just mere religious person and being a committed follower of Jesus. People have used different names for it. They say being born again, or they say spirit-filled, others say Bible-believing. But a kingdom-minded believer is a believer in the principles of the Word of God and follower of Jesus Christ.
Robert, what sort of a reading audience did you have in mind for it?
This book is intended to help the people who have faith in God and who are struggling between the real faith and what is authentic. Because out there, we have so many denominations, we have very many orientations to the Christian faith, and most of these diversities create confusion as to what is the right way, what is the right path to follow. And the book is trying to define the line that marks between being religious and having the real faith in God. Because the denominations have left confusion in the Christian fraternity as to where do I go and what kind of faith, how do I base my faith. And the book is coming in to give that kind of light.
So how did this all come about, Robert? How did you get the idea to start this book?
It has come from my experience in my growth because I was brought up in a Christian family, but we were just religious and we were following some rituals, of the denominations which we were following. And so after following for some time, the religious rituals and the things that we were doing, I had a personal encounter with the Lord Jesus Christ, and I received the Holy Spirit. So I came to experience the difference between being just religious and now having an encounter with the Lord and having Him, Jesus Christ, as your Lord and Master.
So when it comes to writing and publishing and everything like that, Robert, is this all new to you or are you experienced in it?
It's new. This is my first book. I'm new to writing, but I read so many books. I follow so many writers. So I'm a reader. I have read so many books. I have several writers that inspire me, like the late Miles Monroe, who was writing so much about the kingdom, about potential, about vision, about leadership. So I love books and I keep reading, and hopefully I'll continue writing as I get the inspirations of the Word.
So once you got started on this, Robert, was this a long journey that you were on, the writing and publishing and everything?
In my life, I'm a minister. So being a minister, a pastor in a church, our ministry is called Kingdom Glorious Tabernacle. We are in Washington State. Being a minister and interacting with the Word, interacting with the people, listening to other ministers, it's not a strange thing for me to write or to think about writing because I interact with these things every day of my life.
So once you handed your manuscript off and started working with your publisher, Christian Faith, Robert, what did you find the most challenging part about the publishing end of things?
Publishing a book, I think, at first I thought it would be something quick, and then maybe just a few days I just a little cost and then get the book out. But then I discovered there's a procedure. It's a long process. If you're writing a book and you want to do it right, getting through the process is an important thing.
Again, it's titled, Are You a Kingdom-Minded Believer? See the 7 Great Mandates That Define You. This is written by Robert Kiama Ndirangu and published by Christian Faith Publishing. So find it at places like Amazon and Barnes & Noble and iTunes and also traditional brick-and-mortar stores. Robert, thank you for coming on the show and telling me all about your work. It was really great talking.
Thank you.
The new book by author Debra Martinez is a testimony of faith and divine protection during life's fiercest battles. The name of the book is Under His Shadow, based on a true story. And the author, Debbie, is right here with me. We're going to be talking all about it. Debbie, welcome to the show. Thanks for being here tonight.
Well, thank you. I'm glad to be here.
I'm glad to have you. Can you tell me all about Under His Shadow and what readers can expect to find here?
Well, you can expect about a mother, a military wife that supported her husband during Iraqi freedom. While his deployment, he had a 18-month tour. He comes back, and we both learn, we get actually a call saying that something's wrong with our son. And when I flown back from Fort Stewart, Georgia, my son was diagnosed with epilepsy. So through all that, couple of months, he was deployed again, and that's when I lost my mother, and my mother died in a car wreck, and I had all these things going on, and God just rescued me. He's amazing, because I was not a person in church. My family, my father was a World War veteran, so I knew about military life. I was raised up in military life, but to be a military wife, it was very hard because not only did I have to run the household, I have to now try and figure out what's wrong with my son. And he rescued me. He saved me. And today he's been guiding me. You know, my husband was battling after Afghanistan, his 2 tours. He was diagnosed with cancer. He almost died. But a lot of prayer and strength, you know. What's so crazy that as we were going through all these episodes, God didn't leave me out of my sight. Actually, to be honest with you, right before he had cancer, my son stopped breathing. They were about to put him on life support. But when he was in the trauma room, on his own, he just woke up. But that's how the book is. It's like an eye testimony as a remembrance of how God had guided me through all these trials. And today, he's been guiding me to the end of my road, I guess. But a lot of it is heartfelt. You know, it's about a mother who didn't give up, who believed in God, and God believed in her and made her strong, you know. And through COVID and through a lot of struggle, she kept up and got her through the Red Sea, and got her through, taking her to that kingdom that sits waiting for us. And that's why the book was published, is to give glory back to him. People need to know that even though we don't have a relationship with him, like I did in the beginning, he found me, he raised me, he turned me around and put me where I needed. So I was able to succeed with my business. I was able to write a book, which it took me 8 years to write because of all these struggles that were on me. But God had brought me through every single one of them. And that's why it's Under His Shadow. He guided me. He protected me. Even when I was paralyzed, he raised me back on my feet when the doctors could not raise me back on my feet. And that's why the book was called Under His Shadow. The book originally was called Never Forgotten. I thought God forgot me. I thought he abandoned me. But after going through all this, all the changes, all the turnarounds he brought me through, that's why it was Under His Shadow that brought me back on my feet. And that's why the name changed from Never Forgotten to Under His Shadow, because he proved to me he was with me. And there's a lot more of stories a lot more that are not even written in the book. There are experiences, that things, even witnesses from my business saw that are not written in this book. So the testimony is in this book that not only just faith, everything surrounding the body of God was given to me. Everything was prepared that led me to where I am today.
You know, we have a lot of authors listening who are just starting out. So is there any advice here that you could throw out there for them?
I would suggest that you get one computer. I had to buy 4 computers because every computer would not let me get them back in my book. You know, it took me, like you said, 8 years. A lot of my manuscripts disappeared. You know, I don't know where they went. I just like the devil was taking them and tearing them up.
Well, what a wonderful message of hope in this book. Again, it's titled Under His Shadow. It's based on a true story. It's written by Debra Martinez, published by Christian Faith Publishing, so you can get it pretty much anywhere, like Amazon and Barnes & Noble and iTunes, also traditional brick-and-mortar stores. Debbie, it's been really wonderful talking with you and learning all about Under His Shadow. Thanks again for being on the show.
Well, thank you so much for having me.
Where are we going today, Lord? That's the name of the new book just put out by Jim Osteen. Jim is right here with me now. We're going to be talking all about it. Jim, welcome to the show. Thanks so much for joining me.
Thank you for having me. I appreciate it.
Absolutely, Jim. I'm curious about where are we going today, Lord. Can you tell me all about it?
One of the things I was wanting to do was just help people to see how God is always at work in our lives, even when we don't realize it, and just bring a greater awareness of his work in our midst. Just a lesson that I've learned, that even when I felt like God wasn't paying attention to what was going on, he was really working out some pretty good things. And so I simply took a lot of experiences in life. Been in ministry 53 years. My wife and I lived 22 years full time in an RV, traveling the country, doing revivals, crusades, a lot of overseas work. And so I was just able to see him working in just ways that I never, expected.
Jim, what kinds of readers do you think would get the most out of this?
Well, really, age-wise, it's kind of written for everybody. It'll make you laugh. It'll make you cry. It reaches out to all age groups, and not just Christians. I mean, non-Christians will enjoy it. I served a time in the Marine Corps. I have some experiences from those days that's in there as well. And so it really reaches out to anybody and someone having a difficult time in life. It's words of encouragement and uplifting in times of trouble.
Jim, how did this all come about? What inspired you to write this?
Well, it really started, I'll be 73 this month, but it really started back when I was in my 20s. I'd be preaching and teaching, and people started then asking me, say, will you please, put your stories and illustrations down in a devotion book? But I just never did. But as it got older, my wife and my children, they kept, staying behind me. And then I just realized one day, that I need to do this because long after I'm gone, the book will still be there. And these stories, not that there's anything special about Jim Osteen, because there's not, but it shows how God works in our lives. They will still be there. And you can still touch people. You can still help people and reach people long after you're gone. And so I wanted to do it and leave it to my children and grandchildren.
So what does your writing background look like? Have you been published prior to this?
Never had. My writing, my sister, she loved writing and things, but I never was really interested. I loved reading, but I was never interested in writing myself. I wrote, when I was writing lesson plans, sermons, that kind of stuff. I loved teaching, but I'd never written until now. So it was an experience for me.
So you had your manuscript all ready to go, and you hooked up with your publisher, Christian Faith. You began that publishing process. Jim, what did you find the most challenging part about that end of things?
I guess it's more involved than I realized. I have a greater appreciation for writers now than I did. I sent my manuscript in, and everything, okay, it's a go. And so, sent it to the editors. Then it comes back with all their changes and stuff, for paragraphs and grammar and that kind of stuff. Then you're sending back to them, when you agree, okay, yeah, we can do these changes. And line 191, in between this word and that word, insert this word, and that kind of stuff. There's a lot of stuff involved that I never realized. And so it really gave me a greater appreciation for writers and what you go through. It'd be a lot easier. If I do another one, it'll be a whole lot easier.
There's nothing like seeing that finished product, Jim, and whenever you were holding that first copy for the first time in your hands, what was that like for you?
Shock, in some ways, because that was just never on my radar as something that I would do. Just my background, I never thought that I would actually be writing it. But it was a very good feeling. It's a feeling of accomplishment. It's something you're definitely proud of that I could leave to my family. And I really have a great appreciation for my wife and children, and the support that I got from them.
Well, this book is titled, Where Are We Going Today, Lord? It's written by Jim Osteen, published by Christian Faith Publishing, and available places like Amazon and Barnes & Noble and iTunes and also traditional brick-and-mortar stores. Jim, it's been really wonderful talking with you tonight. Thanks again for being here.
Well, listen, I appreciate your time, Corey, and wish you nothing but the best.
Sitting right here with me now at the ReaderHouse Author Roundtable, author Jeannine Williamson. Jeannine, welcome. Thanks for being here.
Thank you.
Had to say congratulations. You have a new book out titled Rosa the Lion. Jeannine, can you tell me all about it?
Well, this book is just a, young child's book. It's just about a lion she appears in the city park one day, and no one knows she's there. And Gus, the zookeeper, took his dog Jersey for a walk, and instead of walking around the park like he always does, that day he chose to walk through the park. He and Jersey were walking happily when the lion jumped out from behind the garbage can to them, and Gus was kind of excited to see the lion. And Jersey and this unnamed lion, who later is Rosa, were kind of growling at each other, whatnot, and Gus scooped up the lion, and it was like an answer to his dreams. He always wanted a lion at the zoo. So he took the lion home, and he showed his wife, Mary, and they decided to keep the lion because they didn't know where she belonged. And so Gus introduced this lion to all the other zoo staff and to Jen Labette, and they were so excited to have a lion. They had a little party for her to welcome her to the zoo, and they invited all the kids. And Rosa was just so in love with her new home, her new room. She just knew she would love living at the zoo.
Oh, I love it, Jeannine. How did this come about? Where'd you get the idea for it?
Well, a long time ago, when my oldest daughter was about 3 or 4, now she's 22, I used to tell her like little bedtime stories about a lion named Rosa. And she would just get so excited for Mom. What did Rosa do today? And I would have to make up a story on the fly sometimes. And since she liked them so much, I decided to keep writing them, but telling her, well, this is what happened like when Rosa went to the dentist for the first time. Just kind of to ease her anxiety, maybe about seeing the dentist or going to school or getting her eyes checked. So there's a whole bunch of them that I told my daughter, and then I decided to put them to writing at the encouragement of my husband.
So have you ever done anything like this before? Have you written or been published prior?
No, this is the first time.
So being your first one, was this a long journey for you, the writing and publishing and everything?
The writing, no. I mean, they seem to just like, it didn't have any like writer's block. I just put my pencil to the paper and here was a new story. The publishing journey maybe wasn't as quick.
So once you started working with your publisher, Hawes & Jenkins, Jeannine, what did you find the most challenging part about that?
The most challenging part, I think, was when, the publishing agent would show me, the next step. I, still own the book and all the rights to it. So the most challenging thing was patience, because she would say, okay, for this next part, tell us what you want on each page, how you want it drawn out. And then I would submit it. And even though she said it'll be, 6 to 8 weeks, I think with the first round of drawings, they came back in a week and a half. And that week and a half, I couldn't even wait. I checked my email 80 times a day. Man, when are they coming?
And then that day finally came, and it was a real thing finally. You got your first copy. You're holding it in your hands, Jeannine. What kind of a moment was that like for you?
It was kind of wild because when I had my first contract for publishing that I decided not to go with, and then I put it away for a long time. And then I pulled it back out and was like, okay, let's try this again, even though it won't work out. So don't get your hopes up. It's not going to work. But when I could hold that book in my hand, I was like, oh my gosh, it worked. In 3rd grade when you make an end of school year book and it says well, this is what I'm going to be when I grow up. Everyone picks, because we're in 3rd grade. We don't know. Everyone picks kind of big goals. And when I said author, I always wanted that, but I never really put all my heart into getting it.
So officially you're a published author now, Jeannine. When you think about that, what's the most rewarding aspect of it all for you?
I guess just an accomplishment of a lifelong dream.
What a wonderful book this is. Again, the title is Rosa the Lion. It's written by Jeannine Williamson, published by Hawes & Jenkins Publishing, and available at places like Amazon and Barnes & Noble and iTunes and also traditional brick-and-mortar stores. Jeannine, it's been wonderful talking with you tonight. Thanks again for being here.
Thank you for having me.
This is a charming and inspirational children's tale written by Pamela Pagán. It's titled Oliver, the Littlest Orange. And Pamela is sitting down here with me at the ReaderHouse Author Roundtable. We get to talk all about this. Pamela, welcome. Thanks for joining me.
Oh, thank you for having me.
I'm curious to learn all about Oliver, the Littlest Orange. Pamela, what can readers expect here?
Well, you can expect to find out what it feels like to be a little different from everyone. Oliver is someone that's very cheerful, very happy, great personality, but just different, and others do not see things the same way he does. It's a great book for opening up discussions on how people feel about bullying or being kind to others. It's a really great story for children.
I love that message, Pamela. How did this come about? Where'd you get the idea for it?
Well, I got the idea. I had a granddaughter coming into my life, and I wanted to write a story for her. And I wanted something to be meaningful, talk about kindness, being nice to each other. And I thought real hard on what type of character I would use. I thought of a bowl of fruit. I thought fruit is all similar, same, yet each piece is different. And that's how I came up with the orange. And then we kind of just thought a little bit here and there and added a little bit there and just unfolded into a beautiful story.
Pamela, are you experienced in this kind of thing, or is this all kind of new ground for you?
This is new ground. I have written in a journal since I was younger, but this story really just came from my heart. I wanted to share something to my new granddaughter and give something to her, which it comes out that I had 5 other grandchildren after her, and they all are able to enjoy this story.
So, being your first book, did this take a really long time, like the writing part, the publishing part, the whole thing?
The actual thought of it took probably about close to a year. I just picked it up, little bits and pieces, wrote things. Sometimes I would wake up and I'd have just this great thought, and I'd jot it down. But to get it together to where it would rhyme and really make sense, it took some tweaking. And this happened over a couple of years. I would just pick it up and I'd work on it and tweak it. And then all of a sudden it was done. It was there. And then I thought, I need to make illustrations for it. And I just couldn't draw an orange. I was like, I have to learn how to draw an orange. And then I found out that Christian Faith Publishing and other publishers, they also make illustrations for you. And I didn't know this at the time. So in talking with them, they worked with me and they came out with wonderful illustrations for the book. And I didn't have to worry about that. After a couple of years, it was done.
So once you started working with Christian Faith, was there any part about that process that you found particularly challenging?
No, they really helped me in a very comfortable way. They didn't have me do anything on my own. Any questions that I had, they answered. They put me at ease. They really did. I was able to tell them little bits of things that were important to me, and they took it from there. The story itself was written. Everything was exactly the way that I wanted it. But the illustrations is what they really helped me out with. The people there were wonderful. It all worked out.
I can only imagine what you were thinking and what you were feeling whenever you were holding the first copy and it was finally a real thing, Pamela. What was that like for you?
It was a wonderful feeling. It was a dream come true. I had something tangible that I could give to my grandchildren. And it was something that I found then that I really wanted to share with more than just my grandchildren. I thought, oh my goodness, it just got bigger and it got better. And I realized children need to be able to have something like this to discuss things with their parents, to discuss things with teachers. And I saw this as an avenue. I pray that it will continue to grow and reach others.
Again, this book is titled Oliver, the Littlest Orange. It's written by Pamela Pagán and published by Christian Faith Publishing. Find it at Amazon, Barnes & Noble, and iTunes, and also right down the street at your local bookshop. Pamela, it's been wonderful talking with you tonight and learning all about Oliver. Thanks so much for being on the show.
Thank you so much. I really appreciate talking with you too.
The book I'm holding is a powerful, true story about the brotherhood between two men sworn to protect the citizens of Maryland. It's titled The Streets We Roamed, and it's written by Ricky Whitmire. Ricky is right here with me now at the ReaderHouse Author Roundtable. We're going to talk all about it. Ricky, welcome. I appreciate you being here tonight.
Thank you for having me.
Absolutely, Ricky. Can you tell me what readers are going to get into whenever they open up The Streets We Roamed?
Well, basically, the book is about true investigations that I conducted with another detective from Baltimore City. We met at a school, and we never thought that our career paths would cross, but next thing you know, we were working joint cases for probably 20 years together. The book itself is all real investigations that we conducted. It's our search for violent suspects, wanted in Baltimore County, Baltimore City, and the surrounding Maryland areas. It's a brotherhood. We were a family, and we grew closer and closer, and we're friends until today.
Would you say that those who are in law enforcement would be the most into this book?
Well, I think that if the reader is law enforcement, there's a lot of stuff that they can learn from it. Because the way I designed it was, I'm telling true stories, true investigations and behind-the-scenes stuff. But it also, I think, educates the reader, and if it's police, I think it can help them with their work, because the biggest thing in law enforcement is being able to, communicate with citizens and have build up relationships and things like that, because they're our eyes and ears. If we can get the citizens to work with us, then it makes our job in law enforcement easier. And the only way you can do is by building up relationships. And that's what myself and George, that's in this book, that's what we did, and that's what made our job easy.
So how'd this all come about, Ricky? What gave you the idea to sit down and start on it?
Well, going back early in my career, everybody and their brother kept asking me, "Oh man, you need to write a book. Tell us some bad guy stories." That's how they put it. I would come home on a Friday night, and my daughter would be like saying, "Dad, tell me a bad guy story. What happened this week? What happened tonight?" And it just kept going and going, and more family members would keep asking me for stories. And next thing you know, people are saying, "Hey, why don't you write a book? What you do isn't really normal." So next thing I know, a friend of mine from the FBI called and said, "Hey, have you written that book yet? You need to write a book. Talk about your career." And then a detective in New York City called me, and he goes, "Come on, man, you got to do this." And then I just sat down one day and decided, you know what, I'm going to put it together.
So was this a really long process overall, the writing and then the publishing and everything?
Actually, I was sitting down early one morning thinking about it, and I started with an outline, writing down the cases that, some of the cases that myself and this guy George worked together. And then once I got the outline together, I started just, pulling out the old reports, going through them to refresh my memory about everything, and then I just started putting it down to paper. Once I got it down like that, then I was researching for, someone to publish it, and you learning about it, because being the first time, you're new at everything. It's like it's a learning process.
So once you hooked up with your publisher, Newman Springs, and you started that process, Ricky, what did you find the most challenging part of that?
I think the most challenging part really was just dedicating the time to do it. Because once I started, you start to relive your life. And I think because it's all true stories, you get to experience what you did all over again. And it just started to flow. It was amazing. It truly was. I couldn't stop writing. Next thing I know, I'm at 10,000 words, and then next it's 50,000, and it's like, holy smokes. But it was definitely interesting.
Well, this sounds like a great book. Again, it's titled The Streets We Roamed. It's written by Ricky Whitmire, published by Newman Springs Publishing, and available pretty much everywhere, like Amazon and Barnes & Noble and iTunes, and also traditional brick-and-mortar stores. Ricky, it's been great talking with you tonight and learning all about The Streets We Roamed. Thanks again for talking.
Thank you so much for having me. It's my pleasure.
Bonny Mack has written a new book that's a charming story of a Tomty who must learn to trust humans after discovering a new home. And it's titled Finley's Farm, a little Tomty on a big mission. And the author, Bonny, is right here with me now at the ReaderHouse Author Roundtable. we get to talk all about this. Bonny, welcome. Thanks for being here tonight.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
I can't wait to find out about Finley's farm, Bonny. Can you tell me all about this?
Sure. So Finley's a tomte, like you said, and a tomte is a mythical figure from Sweden. Usually all the Scandinavian countries have something like this. And a tomte would live in the barn, and he would take care of the animals or see that they were well taken care of on the farm. Then he would bring the farm good luck if everything was taken good care of. If not, he would move on and try to find a new place to live. And this little tomte, he's having trouble finding farms because they're disappearing right and left. And one day he stumbles onto a farm museum, and it's closed for the season, but he decides to move in. And then all kinds of things happen after that.
What sorts of readers did you have in mind for this?
Well, it's probably not for a small child. There's a lot of words. There's a lot of story here, a lot of things happening. So it's a good book for parents to read to their littler ones, or else kids that are maybe 5 and up. I've had a lot of grandparents that really like the book.
So, Bonny, how did this all come about? Where'd you get the idea for this?
Well, I live in a little town that has a Swedish museum just like this. And I just started thinking, what if there was a little tomte there and nobody knew it? And he ends up meeting the director's son, and they make friends. So he has his very first human friend. And they decide that they should bring some animals into this barn because there's a barn and a pasture and no animals. So they bring a Highland cow and calf. They bring some sheep and a pony and a miniature donkey. And then they try to have them, keep them out of sight.
So, Bonny, are you experienced in this writing and publishing thing, or is this all sort of new for you?
This is all new. This is my first 30-something years ago. I wanted to write children's books, but then I was having children, and things kind of got put on the back burner. And now I'm a grandparent and looking at retirement, and thought, you know what? I should look into that again. After my mom gave me back some of my old stories, I thought, heck, maybe I can do this.
So being your first book, was this a long journey overall for you, like the writing part and the publishing part and everything?
The writing probably took me 5 months. Yeah, and then the publishing, it's all new to me what the process was. But it was very interesting. They get the illustrations and approve them, and where did they go, and, describe what you want in your illustration. That was very neat. I liked it.
So looking down the road, Bonny, do you have some more books in you? You plan on maybe writing, publishing more?
I do. In fact, this book, Finley's Farm, takes place in early spring while the museum is closed. And, they think it's such a good idea to bring these animals in and then hide them during the day. Well, book 2, midsummer, they get discovered because you can't just keep them hidden out there. They want to be outside during the day, not in. And so eventually Jack's mom, the director, discovers them. And during the midsummer celebration, the sheep get loose, and there's Swedish meatballs everywhere, and it's quite a ruckus. So that's the second one. And then if this keeps going well, we might do a fall and a winter one as well.
Well, a lot of our listeners right now are authors who are just starting out as well, Bonny. So do you maybe have some advice that you could throw out there for them?
Oh, yes. Keep going. Keep trying. Keep looking at your sentences and rewriting and having people read them for you because they'll see something that you don't. And then I sent my story to 3 different hybrid publishers, and they all called back and they all wanted to do it. So then it was just a matter of talking to them and seeing what their packages were and who I was comfortable with. I totally encourage people to do it. It's a lot of fun, and it's so different than everyday life.
Again, it's titled Finley's Farm, A Little Tomte on a Big Mission. It's written by Bonny Mack, published by Newman Springs Publishing, and available pretty much everywhere, like Amazon and Barnes & Noble and iTunes, and also traditional brick-and-mortar stores. Bonny, it's been really great talking with you tonight. Thanks again for being here.
Well, thank you very, very much for having me.
We hope you enjoyed this edition of the ReaderHouse Author Roundtable, where authors from all walks of life come together to discuss the trials, tribulations, and triumphs of publishing their books. We hope to see you back here every Friday night at 8 p.m. or listen anytime via podcast at Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Stitcher, TuneIn, and PodServe, to name just a few. The Author Roundtable is sponsored by ReaderHouse Online Bookstore, where independent new authors come first.